Just waiting for people to log in. Gareth Knock. Hey, Scott. Welcome back, buddy. Scott Kelly from We As Dads. Gareth from We As Difference Makers, who's going to co-host with me tonight. There he is. Gareth Knock's on here. And, yeah, there we go. Let's get it started. How's the sunset looking, Scotty? There he is.
What's up?
Hey, bud.
What's going on?
How are you?
I'm good. You know what? Hold on.
Attaboy. Yeah.
I'm better.
So my whole family, I don't mind confessing this, my whole family is on my front lawn right now. My parents came up for a little socially distanced quarantine dinner. So I barbecued some burgers and I set up a 10-foot long table. They sat at one end, we sat at the other. But I know we had our IG live tonight, so they're up there drinking wine, and I'm down here drinking wine. So it kind of worked out perfectly.
Oh,
how's your day been, bud?
Good, man. Good. Sun is shining. It's been for a bike ride, a little sitting in the garden, a little outdoor workout. You know how it goes.
I'm super excited to taste some of the produce that comes out of your backyard.
Oh, some pears and some raspberry jam coming your way.
That's quite the little pitch that she's made. Are there any peas or like snow peas or beans coming out of the yard, or is it mostly fruit?
The pear tree, the raspberry bush, kale, tomatoes, and field cucumbers.
You know what? Kale's so 2017. Who still grows kale? Kale is the new bacon.
Yeah, right.
What do you want to do, bud? You want to jump in?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. I'm sure some more people will jump on as it pops up in their feed. So yeah, let's do it, man.
I got some sun today. Holy shit!
Little red glow there.
Oh, that might be the red wine. No, it's the Sicilian tan. It goes a touch red, and then it just goes deeper shades of brown.
There you go.
Man,
yeah, I'm good. I'm hanging out on the basement couch. Got my red wine. Got my superhero pajama bottoms on. I'm good to go.
You are not wearing pajamas right now, and I just said pajamas.
Like an ant.
Well, I'm not wearing pants, so we're good.
Hey, it's only the camera only shoots the top up, right? So
yeah. So I guess it's worth recapping or giving some context to your post, control versus influence. And I guess one of the things that occurred to me is I want to make it clear that we're not suggesting that it is, anytime I see the word versus, there's not a sort of a war being waged. We're not suggesting it's, control versus no, it's how we interpret situations in our life and experiences in our life.
Yeah. And
you and I, as we often do, went on one of our early morning 10K walks, and 5:30 in the morning, and we do our walk, and we started having a conversation.
Sorry, I was going to say, yes, that is a thing we do.
Well, because I guess other people are kind of going, what? They like my wife, when I get home, she goes, "You talked to Gareth for how long? What do you talk about?" I'm like, "Babe, if you want to be a part of it, you have to join the walk. You can't be a tourist. You can't just, I can't regurgitate what we've chatted about unless you've been a part of it. You don't deserve that." So, and that line always goes over really well with my wife. Hey, Johnny, good to see you, bud. So one of the things that you and I have talked about a lot over the years, and I'm not trying to paint you into a corner, but as we agreed earlier today, the launching pad for this IG Live would be to create some context so people can understand what the fuck we're talking about. We've often talked about the mechanism of control and control as it pertains to our own lives. And over the years that I've known you, I've seen a shift in your interpretation of control. When you and I first met, and when we first started becoming buddies, you were very absolute control. I will control everything. I must control everything. I am in complete control. And over the years, with a little bit of maturity, and I think probably having a 3-year-old has helped temper this a great deal, because they're like trying to control a tornado wrapped in a black hole at the bottom of an ocean. You are now, your position is control what you can control. And I think the other day when we were talking, my response was, well, what does that even mean? What are we really talking about? And is it actually control? Is it perhaps more aligned with the simple suggestion of influence? Is control something so fucking daunting that either A, people try and do it absolutely, or B, people run from it? And is there a version of being the best version of yourself in your life that maybe is more rooted in simply influencing your day-to-day existence versus trying to control it? So when you and I chatted the other day, Gareth, that kind of resonated with you. So, talk me through what you've been thinking about over the past 2 days.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great summary of the topic. And I think I think the one thing that has become, and I'm sure we'll dig into all the things we kind of hashed out the conversation, but one thing that's kind of come true for me the last few days is that control is always something I've spoken about for me as a negative personality trait. And and I've always, as you know, like, it's been over controlling in a lot of situations in my life, like avoiding things where I can't control them, and then over controlling things that, and then causing those things to break down or disappear or get pushed away.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that I choose, and you couldn't just let me have my control what you can control. I'm like, I'm so smart, I got this thing, I'm going to control what I can control, but oh no, you didn't let me have it. But so true, because what I made that realization is that I refer to it as a negative in my personality trait, although I choose to communicate control what you can control. So the realization for me over the last 2 days is that it's made, and I'm big on you're the story you tell yourself. So if I'm telling myself controlling is a negative trait, and then I'm using that terminology to communicate, I question whether, well, what I now know is that, it is for me about influence and not about control.
Yeah. It's for me as somebody, and you and I call each other on stuff, and we always have over the years, and that's one of many facets of our friendship that I'm very grateful for. And when we talked about this originally, you called me out on it right away, that my personality tends to be prone to very black and white. Right? I don't function terribly well in the gray area. And one of the things that truly, once and for all, relinquishing control and embracing a new lexicon, embracing a new sort of way to frame it emotionally, and that being influence, that is also a huge step for me and for a lot of people, where it empowers you to live in that gray area. Because influence can be much more subtle than control. Control is a hammer. Influence is just like a little thumbtack. Control is either successful or failed. influence has degrees and versions of it within its own subtleties that can work. So I'm so happy that we had that conversation, because even in the past 2 days, and I've yet to find all of the ways in which this will be applicable, but even in the past 2 days, I've found countless scenarios where the suggestion of influencing something immediately gives me much greater sense of peace. And what do we always talk about is self-worth. I am now going into situations, not going into a situation where I need to control it. Ergo, I'm probably going to fucking fail, because you can't control anything. I'm going into a situation where all I need to do is influence that situation for my own betterment. So my success ratio is going to soar, and as is my self-worth, because now I'm going to be succeeding at the things that I'm trying to influence versus failing at the things I'm trying to control, which for you and for many other people, but I'm speaking to you, I think that's a huge win, because your success metric is very much based on what you can, historically, what you can control. So just changing that language ever so slightly, for me, has had a profound impact.
Massive. Yeah, it truly is massive. And you know, we spoke to this about, hey Sarah, how's it going? Yeah, so there's definitely some scenarios that come up for me, and I guess I lean on the two biggest. Actually, let's go for the three big things that kind of circle my life. So there's three big things that I look at when we look at control. So number one is being a parent, and in that, being a family as well, because you know, being a partner and, you know, being a husband is part of that. But the three things, or the triangle, if you like, around my life are my relationships and my family, you, you know, my role in leadership, and then the podcast, you know, or our collective podcasts. So in all of those things, what I do is break them down and break them all down. So when you look at your family life, and specifically parenting, when we control, what happens? Like you mentioned, I have a 3-year-old, you've had a 3-year-old twice, and many other years. When we try and control our children, it's going to end badly. They erupt. They don't like to be over controlled. They don't like to be over directed. But what we can do is we can influence their behavior. And we spoke about this a lot. It's, you know, at the end of the day, I want you to choose a breakfast cereal. I want you to eat breakfast. So here's 2 choices of cereal. I'm going to influence you by giving you these 2 choices. You can make a decision, and then you can sit down and eat breakfast, and doesn't have to take 3 hours of our day. So that's the difference. If I was controlling it, would be, no, you're sitting down and this is the cereal you're eating, and you're eating it with 2% milk. So that's one scenario. Next is leadership. So there's a couple of you jumping on that I know are in leadership roles. I've seen you come up on there already. With leadership, if we control and we micromanage, and that's kind of, I think control sits into that. You will do it this way. You will do it this way. I will give you direction on everything, is, again, shit show. Like, we don't create great teams of people and great successes. When we're a leader, we influence. So what, again, I'm trying to, again, like parenting, I'm trying to get the end result I want. The end result is I want my team to be more productive. I want to generate more revenue. Whatever it is you have to influence them, because you can't make people do things the way you think it needs to be done. You need them to want to do it. So you have to influence them to get that. Right. And then I think the podcast too, right? If I'm going out there and making a podcast called We as Difference Makers, but I want to tell everyone exactly how to be a difference maker. You must do it this way. You have to do everything I say. I'm going to get 0 downloads.
Yeah.
So, and I want to sometimes, but what I realize is I have to influence. I have to share a story. I have to make it relatable. I have to link it to a talking point, to a subject, and then give that influence out. And hopefully that will marinate out in the world, and hashtag be the pebble, it blows up. So that's my kind of triangle that I've come up with over the last few days.
Scott Kelly's going to bust your balls on your use of the word marinate, by the way. Apparently it's wrong.
Really?
Yeah. Well, anyways,
even with the hand signal, the marinate.
I'm sure you'll get no. apparently there's two different versions of it, and I'm sure it'll pop up in the comments in a second, but
Oh, yeah.
or you'll just get a strongly worded email momentarily.
Elias says it's a good word to use, so fuck you, Scott.
I think there's a real, your description about parenting, like 100%, couldn't agree more. Your description, all of your descriptions are absolutely perfect. There is one sort of addendum that I would add from a leadership standpoint is you can control people from a leadership standpoint. You can control people. There are fear mechanisms and there are ways to incentivize people. So you can control behavior from a leadership perspective for a short period of time. But one thing that I believe, control exhausts way faster than influence. Influence ripples forever. And influence becomes contagious. And influence also becomes interpreted. I might influence you. So the podcast is a perfect example. You and I have spent a lot of time on my podcast, We as Men. I influenced you to create your own podcast, We as Difference Makers. That influence will live on long beyond me. Who knows how many lives it's going to touch. If I had have said to you a year ago, Gareth, you've got 30 fucking days to start a podcast. Do it this way, this way, this way, and this way. That extinguishes, I know I said exhaust earlier, that extinguishes quickly. So if we think about our ability to control / influence others, let's now turn it in. What do we believe has a long-term efficacy on our behavior and our life? Are you trying to control your life? And if you are, you might succeed. You might quit something or learn something. You might break up with someone or marry someone. You might have short-term efficacy if you're trying to control your life. But if you flip it, and if the same philosophies are true, which I believe they are, if you flip it and you suggest, I'm just trying to influence my life and the decisions that I make, the power of that influence, not dissimilar from how we influence other people, lives forever. It's yes, exactly. Yes. Well said, Alia. Now, Gareth, do we dare? Do you remember the second half? You're laughing because you know exactly. Do we dare try and tackle that?
Yeah, why not? We're here.
Do you want to tee it up?
Just land on my couch in the basement right now, so I ain't going nowhere.
So who wants to start this? So there was a second half, and it's intrinsically connected to control and influence. Because as Gareth and I, at the 6-kilometer mark, as we continued our conversation the other morning, it morphed. And we really, as we often do, it became very interpersonal. Gareth, when you and I start our conversations, they often are very macro. And we talk about the world and change and big. And then as we talk more and more, it shrinks. And then it's about Gareth and Carl.
Yeah.
And I think, and it took me a minute to articulate it, and it took you a minute to actually digest it. But I think one of the things that we said that's one of the key differentiators between embracing and comprehending control versus influence is servitude. Who are you in service of?
Yep.
If you are in service of yourself, meaning basically your life is a debt that you have to repay to yourself. If you're in service of yourself, then that service can only be fulfilled by the creation of long-term ongoing influence. If you are in service to someone or something else, and let's be clear, We are not having a spiritual religious debate. This is much more sort of mental health and interpersonal. If you are in service of material things or income or wealth, that has a much shorter lifespan and one that is not necessarily fulfilled day to day. Fill in some of the blanks, Gareth, because I know that we sort of love that concept when we were discussing it.
Well, I'm kind of leaning that, and yeah, absolutely. It's we're serving ourselves, and that might sound to I guess some of you listening that kind of sounds selfish, but it is in the best way. And I've spoke about this a lot. I did a live about it with Nikki recently, and it sometimes we have to be selfish and we have to really focus on serving ourselves because and this is again one of your analogies you love is you've got to take care of yourself first, right? So the oxygen on the plane metaphor that you like to use on your podcasts, on this week's episode, but it's so true, right? So you're serving yourself, and I think we have to be selfish to serve ourselves. How I kind of flipped it a little bit with that is when we're looking at the material things or the possessions or the wealth or the things you mentioned, is it kind of, you stop serving something and you become a slave, because there's never there's never enough
Mm-hmm.
cars, there's never enough money, there's never enough swimming pools, there's never enough, right? There's never enough of those things, so you're a slave to it because you're trying to get something that is unachievable, really. I mean, because even if you're a billionaire, and we've had this conversation before of how sometimes it blows my mind, there's some people out there earning millions of dollars a year and they don't have any money, and just because I think it just continues and continues and continues, and you can't serve those things, you become a slave to those things.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where my head went a little bit when you said that, and kind of linking to what we were speaking about. But we definitely have to serve ourselves, and then what happens is we relinquish the control, because when we serve ourselves and we influence that just um that just flows out to everyone around us. So when you surround yourself circle that you have, if you're trying to control someone you're in a relationship with your kids, with the people that you're leading, whatever it is that's your focus, and it's very external, right? So it's you kind of you're a slave to that, because it doesn't matter how much you try and do that, you're never going to win, right? So when you serve yourself and you just worry about you being the best version of yourself, you're just going to influence everyone with that, and for the better, because someone's going to want to up their game because you are a better version of yourself. You're inspiring those people to want more, and they're going to become more. And then, and there's a lot of that as well. In that is you need to respect and appreciate people's faults and imperfections.
Yeah. You and I have, and by the way, whoever Aaliyah is, I love your contributions to this conversation. Thank you so much. You're absolutely right. Gareth, you and I have talked, and I don't know if you've ever actually read his book yet, but Jocko Willink, the retired Navy. You there?
Yeah.
Sorry. My phone was dying and I just plugged it into my laptop, and now it's asking to access. Anyways, whatever. Jocko Willink, one of his books, and he's written many, but one of his books, and it's one of my favorite books, is Discipline Equals Freedom. And one of the first things he does is he talks about sort of breaking down what the word discipline means, and I'm probably bludgeoning his publication, but it's basically you're a disciple to yourself.
Yep.
So maybe a less foreign approach for a lot of the people that are going to watch this IG live or listen to your podcast or Scott Kelly's We as Dads or mine is, we're talking about, serving yourself and self-servitude, and we're talking about being selfish in a healthy way, but maybe a word that more people will understand is discipline. And discipline is basically what we're talking about. is until you are the focal point of your own physical, mental, financial, spiritual, and emotional health and well-being, nothing else around you will be. And you can fill it with a bunch of shit. I mean, look, I know lots of millionaires that are super happy, and very high functioning and great parents and amazing family members. So you don't exchange one for the other. But because you had said earlier, people with money often want more money, and that's a good thing. We need a little bit of that, but
Yeah.
There's a way for us to really understand that there's nothing out there that's going to make in here better. It is, in fact, quite the opposite. It's what's in here makes out there better. And too many people have it. And for a long time, I was one of them. Too many people have it reversed. In another life, many years ago, I spent $1 million in 1 year partying, buying stuff, traveling. I was no more emotionally, intellectually, mentally healthy at the end of that. In fact, I was probably worse. And it took that experience for me to realize that I had it backwards.
Yeah.
Disciplined habits last longer than motivate. Yeah. Somebody's read David Goggins.
Yeah. Yeah. Shout out to Aaliyah. She's awesome. I work with Aaliyah. And just an amazing, positive person. So thank you for being on in your comments. And yes, Scott agreed. Aaliyah and dibs on her being on my show first, so you guys can get in line, because you're secondary connections. So get out of here. Yeah.
Well, I think we let Aaliyah decide, to be honest.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Sure. I'll be sure to send her a quick message. Don't you worry.
It's okay.
Yeah,
I've already sent her one.
Good call on good call on me as well for the money thing. Absolutely. I will just add actually that tomorrow lunchtime, 1:30, Aaliyah's going to be doing an IG live with Nikki. So please go out, you can check out her page or Nikki's page. You guys follow that. I'll drop it in the comments later. So absolutely. And what was I going to say? Oh yeah, good call on me on the money thing. Absolutely. So yeah, maybe that didn't come across quite as it meant to, but yeah, good shout that there are many people out there that have got it together, that are millionaires and have got that stuff, but they have probably. So my retort to that is that they're probably focusing on the right things, and then the money's coming as a result of it, because they are happy and they're living fulfillment, right? So it's definitely a good call, but good maybe kind of think about it that way a little bit more. Yeah.
Can I one of the things that you and I feel like it's always a fucking history lesson. So I think I'm going to make this the last time that I repeat much of our friendship. It's like one of the things that we always used to love, like we're 80-year-old men sitting on a porch. Don't say a word. I will drive to your house. I know you're dying too. Go ahead, say it. I know what you want to say.
Nope.
Yeah.
I will say.
Gareth wanted to make a reference to how much closer to 80 I am than he is. Sorry, you're my teenage project.
Yeah, right.
Scott's on his porch.
Well, at least he's got the right day today. He tried to watch our IG live yesterday. It's 24 hours early.
Yeah. And then I got a really shitty email from him saying, guys, I really was committed to seeing on, and now I'm sitting out here and you're not on. I'm really disappointed. Oh wait, I got the wrong day.
I don't know what we were saying, but I have a question.
Me? Yes.
I have a question, because I think this comes back around to what we were saying about us and the kind of in the internal and getting this stuff I was going to getting this stuff, straight, but I think getting this stuff, the internal stuff, on the right path to being the best version of yourself will influence everybody else. And the reason I have a podcast in big part is because of this whole We As platform, the conversation that we have going, but also it's the ability to realize that when you don't have to be, you can be perfectly imperfect, and you can make a difference, and you can influence by getting your internal journey on the right path. So that's massive. Linked to that is a question. So here's something else that we spoke about that I think is a great segue from the topic, and I think it's so tightly linked, and it obviously is because we spoke about it in the same walk. But whose opinion of you is most important?
Fuck off. I knew you said you were going to ask me this. Well, you know what? Hey, then I need to be truthful. How about I let you ask the question so that the listeners, the watchers, whatever the fuck they are, so that they know what we're talking about. Go ahead and ask the question.
So we have the conversation about, being more about, I think we kind of led on to more about being the role model, etc. And we were talking about opinions and self-worth. And I think the thing that came up was your comment, and I'm paraphrasing it, but something along the lines of that the person whose opinion is most important to you is your son.
Yes.
And my comeback to that was exact. I was like, well, who is the most important? And you were like, well, it's Maxim, 100%. And I'm like, no, but it isn't. So for you to show up and be the best role model and be on that journey to be the best version of yourself, the most important opinion of you is whose? Carl Anthony?
My son. And I may always answer it that way, or I may change my mind. It's almost like, you're talking to somebody and they say, Amy Lynn on this. Hey, Amy. You're talking to somebody and they say, oh my God, have you seen this show on TV? And you say to them, yeah, you know what? I watched like the first 1 or 2 episodes and then I didn't love it. Oh no, you'll love it. Just wait. You'll love it. The propensity to want to convince somebody that they will think a certain way, I've always been sort of allergic to that. Now, while I appreciate what you're trying to suggest is that, yes, as individuals, what we think of ourselves is the most important thing. But that is also tempered by acknowledging in the surround yourself model, I am going to surround myself. Now, it so happens it's my son, and arguably I didn't have a choice as to who he was going to be. But I choose to surround myself with my son, my family, people I love, like yourself and Scott and many other great friends that I'm so privileged to call my inner circle. It's all of those opinions that are more important than my own. And yes. I mean that. Because those are my guardrails. They form me. But the most important person in the world, as far as an opinion goes, now I've got a 21-year-old daughter. Yes, her opinion's important, but she's also got 21 years of living in a fairly sort of cynical, narcissistic world. So her opinion might be different than the beauty of an 8-year-old that's relatively untainted. And much like your daughter Harley, that what Harley may say, the truth that comes from children is so raw and can be so profound. I'm not suggesting Maxim, that's for those just tuning in, that's my son's name. I'm not suggesting Maxim's opinion of me will always be the most important one.
Nope.
When he's a shitty 17-year-old and all he wants is my money and my car, maybe it'll be less important. But for now, as an 8-year-old, he is a divining rod for whether or not I am on the right path or the wrong path. Because if I'm on the wrong path, 8-year-olds, for the most part, don't know censorship, much like your daughter, Harley.
100%. So, two things. Number one,
Yes.
full transparency. I would have answered the question the same way. I just had to bust your balls on it because it was fun.
As we do.
And it's about perspective, right? I would have answered it the same. And it is important. Other people's opinions are important. My point was, and this, I didn't put this across a minute ago, but my point in our previous conversation about whose opinion is important was that if our opinion of ourselves and our self-worth is high, and you, my friends, should be, for everything you are, your self-worth and your opinion is high, and you do that, everyone else's opinion is taken care of because
Yes.
you are showing up as so yes, other people's opinions do count and are important, but if you're taking care of your own, you're going to show up in a way that it is going to influence everybody on such a high level around you that you're already going to be held in such high regard to those people that you don't need those. You don't, and you, especially as a person, don't need someone else as your moral compass. You get it. You're on the right path. None of us are perfect, but when you take care of yourself, and this is something I've learned, I take care of me, and my opinion of me is super important, and has become more and more important. Is everything else just seems to be falling in line. So that was kind of the direction, and I poked fun at you because it's fun for me. But that was kind of the point, and Amanda made a great point here that it's human nature to care about what others think. And, otherwise we'd all be sociopaths, which is true. But the goal is not to care what others think, is to make your decisions that best for you regardless. So you stay on your journey, your moral compass, your journey to the better version of you. If other people don't like it, fuck them. And I like the hashtag. You'll see it on our We As pages and all over the place. The hashtag do you, and do it unapologetically, because you have to, yeah, sure, care what other people think, because I think that's it's human nature, and I think that also makes us good people as well. But you have to continue, because you are going to piss people off. Some people are going to log on this and not give two shits what we're talking about, or not agree, and they'll log off, and people are going to not listen to our podcasts for the same reason. But and we are going to care a little bit about that. It is going to be a little bit raw, but we still have to continue on our path. Great point, Amanda, by the way.
I'm having this weird thing that's happening, and part of me thinks, I don't know, do we overcomplicate the simplicity or the relative simplicity of living a great life? And by overcomplicating it, do you think it's because it's complicated, or do you think it's because living the best life is difficult? And by making it complicated, we give ourselves outs and excuses so that we don't have to live our best life. And I think, and I may be ostracized for this next comment, but I think of the fitness industry, and not an industry, because there's millions and millions and millions of amazing fitness professionals, but there are a few where the basis of creating revenue and of creating a business is to make it so complicated that no one could possibly do it themselves. So you need professional help. And I think about us as individuals, these conversations are really important, and it's critical to get the juices flowing and to start talking. Look at, of course, I believe in that through and through. But I think there's also a much simpler version of a lot of the stuff that you and I discuss, and we as dads and we as men and we as difference makers, soon to be we as women, launching June 18th. there is a much more simple version of all of this. And that is just be the best you. Inexcusably, without exception, without any need to justify it, just be the best you. And all of the other adjectives that we use to describe what that looks like, whether it's control or influence or servitude or discipline, all that shit will take care of itself. We need to find more ways to be the simplest version of the best version of ourselves and fewer ways to overcomplicate all the excuses why we can't.
Yeah, absolutely. And
we may have just put us out of business.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. And the fitness comment is true. And there is a lot of that. And you know, there's definitely, she saw a post about it today and I'm going to ruin it, but it was something along the lines of the best personal trainers are the ones that, you know, they go out there knowing that their clients shouldn't need them, you know, in a certain period of time, right. But those people keep coming back because they choose to, because they want to be around that person. And that's how I've kind of modeled my career. And, you know, and you see it in and I'll give an example, diet and the diet and the weight loss world that's out there is masked with diets and systems and supplements and all this shit. And all these different types, and you must eat like this because I did it and it worked. And that's how fucking nutrition industry is out there, especially on social media. At the end of the fucking day, it's all the same thing. Like everything's going to reduce the amount you eat, and when you reduce the amount you eat, you lose weight. Like, and that's the story that isn't being told by enough people. Well, it is getting better in the industry, but that's a great example. So I think it's a really fair point. And some other great points that Aaliyah and Amanda made as well is about kind of living their. People struggle because living the best life or the best version of themselves, which is kind of how we refer to our best life in the we as community. The best version, people are chasing something, an idea, which Aaliyah put there. People are chasing an idea, and when people chase an idea, it's someone else's vision. But that's not what you're looking for. The best version of you, not the best version of someone else.
Absolutely.
So you have to focus on you. So your opinion of you is important. And that's what, and I came to this realization when you were talking as well. We were talking about whose opinion's important. And I go back to the title of the live, influence versus control. When you're worried about other people's opinion of yourself, you're trying to control their opinion of yourself by the way you live your life. When you focus on you and you influence, so it's definitely a bigger link than maybe we, you know, even initially thought of. But that's kind of what came to me is when your opinion of you is about influence, someone else's opinion about you is often about control.
Yeah. If you're worrying about someone else's opinion of you, it's definitely too late.
Yeah.
Like if you're worrying about it, that opinion's already been formed.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you and I go to Vegas and I cheat on my wife with a bunch of strippers. And then I worry about your opinion of me. Well, your opinion of me changed at the Spearmint Rhino. I can't control that. It's happened. It's past tense. So the opinion, and that, by the way, I would never do that. But when we start to worry about other people's opinions, here's a fucking newsflash. And this is actually Gareth. Good job, buddy. Here's the cathartic moment. If you are worrying about someone's opinion of you, it's too late. They've already got that opinion of you and they've moved on. What you can do potentially is you can influence how you augment their opinion of you. There's Scott Kelly. All right. So I just came up with a little exercise.
Oh God.
Okay. You know me, I love homework. Even though I despise homework because now I'm a grade 3 fucking math teacher. Pick a thing that, and I'm not necessarily saying you, Gareth, but to anybody that's tuning in, and as this, propagates itself throughout our listeners around the world, pick a thing and do this exercise with one or two things. Pick a thing that you feel you control. And draw like a little bicycle wheel, just as I did here. Draw a little bicycle wheel, and at the center of that bicycle wheel, write the thing that you feel you control. And then off of that center hub, write a spoke that is not control based, but a spoke that is influence based. And write as many as you can. Write 2, write 10, write 50. Shift the model, and I'm going to really bludgeon this metaphor, but the wheel that's going to be turning your existential time on Earth, the wheel that's going to be turning that, shift the model of how we view it, that is, it's driven by the hub or the control, because it's not. If you take all the spokes out of a bicycle wheel, what happens?
Just
nothing. Yeah, you're sitting down, basically.
Yeah.
But if you take one spoke, 2 spokes, 5 spokes, I don't know what the number is when a wheel stops working, but you can remove spokes of influence and the wheel will still move. It will still turn and it will still function as designed. It will still be what it needs to be. So we need to create a model for movement through life that is influence-based, not control-based. Because if you live a control-based model and that control goes away, you're fucked. You've crashed your bicycle, you're in a tree. If you live an influence-based life, and if the movement forward of your life is influence-based, then life, which is elastic, and it changes, and it ebbs and it flows, your life will survive moments where different influence either exist or don't exist. The subtle nuances of life, it'll survive it, and you'll keep moving forward. So that's something that I'm trying to frame my life. Fucking Scooby-Doo over here, right? That's something I'm trying to frame my life around, is creating a more multifaceted influence-based life versus a singular control-based life.
Yeah. Fucking genius. Love it. The bike wheel, that's awesome. It's so true. Like, what you can literally bring that to anything. And we spoke about this.
Thanks, Scotty.
It's very much, and whatever we choose, and we picked a few things out in our conversation earlier in the week, and things that we think we can control. And this is a fucking question that got dropped on me at 5:25, and so I had a thought. What do you really control? And it got me thinking about, like things like, our fitness, our nutrition, our finances, our life, our schedule, like all that shit that I think I control. And, if anything, the current situation we're in all over the world proved to us that we have no fucking control over any of it. And we can influence that. We can influence our finances by being smart, living within our means and saving. We can influence stuff. I can influence, my fitness goals by ensuring that, I sleep well, that I work out, I get lots of activity, whatever it is, right? Whatever your goal is in life, whatever that thing is you're looking to control, you just have to influence it. And you're so right in what you said earlier too, and I don't think I touched on it, but it removes, control is big. And influence it can be small, because it's the little tiny things, right? It's that that getting up 20 minutes early to meditate. It's the saving, that little bit of cash every so often, and just ensuring, or just being so mindful that you're not spending more than you earn, even if it's just by $5 or whatever it is, so you can stay. So it's those tiny things. Saying I'm going to control my finances is such a massive thing, and that's where I think you mentioned about how you know, and a few other comments about how the best life, the best version of you is such a big existential thing that people just decide not to do it because it's too much work.
Yeah.
And I think when we and this is why this conversation is so important, and everything we're doing in a platform is so important, because it's about influence. And it seems and it is a fairly small, it's just one spoke, right, or three spokes, soon to be four spokes in that wheel. And it's those things. And what I will say is, if you are struggling with, or anyone out there that listens is struggling with the enormity of life and the best version of yourself, and the control is you have to, you just have to break it down. And these conversations are the things that help with that, right?
Yeah.
Comments, the lives, the podcasts, anyone that's posting, you know, about this stuff or is on the same path as we are. So I think that's how we look at it. We just, influence is the cogs, is the spokes, whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Well said. How are we for time, by the way? I'm not tracking it.
We got like 8 minutes.
You know, I've thought about this for years, and maybe someone write that spoke metaphor down.
Spike.
It's written down. See? Perfect. It's exactly
the spike metaphor.
I've thought about this for years, and I never really knew what it meant until recently, over the past few years. But I kind of think of myself, and shut your mouth. I kind of think of myself, and you know what? For the sake of this little fantasy, let's assume me, you, and Scott, we're old men. And yes, we're older than you, but let's assume me, you, and Scott, we're old men, like 80s. We're sitting on a dock, having a cold beer. We've led a successful life. Our grandchildren are on a jet ski or whatever the fuck it is by then, a hovercraft, some sort of like energy propulsion system. And we're watching our legacy. Will we reflect on those moments and say, either to each other or to ourselves, I have arrived here with all of my love and peace, money, happiness, and success. I have arrived here because I have controlled my life. Or will we suggest, I have arrived here because I've influenced? And I think, for me, the latter is true. Nobody that is truly, profoundly successful, and whatever that metric looks like, I don't give a fuck what it looks like, whether you make 50 grand a year or 50 million a year, but whatever your metric for success is, nobody that is truly, profoundly successful within their own mental health and their emotional well-being, I would doubt any single one of them says, I've achieved this because of constantly being in a state of control. You influence the gray, the subtleties. You worry less about what's out there. You worry more about what's in here. You surround yourself with people who, and yes, Gareth, you baited me into this, but we now agree, you surround yourself with people whose opinions matter to you. Because what a scary fucking world it is if you're surrounded by people who have opinions you don't care about. Can you imagine living that way? Can you imagine if you hurt me and I didn't care? Can you imagine if you were making really shitty choices in your life and I said, Gareth, you're making really shitty choices in your life and that's my opinion, and you didn't care? Well, why do I deserve to be in your life? Those are the things that are the influence-based metrics, not control.
Yeah.
We gotta? Who talks like that? Like I'm like a New Jersey, oh, yeah, fucking you gotta. I don't even know where that, that was like Jewish. I don't know what that was. So anyhow.
Oh, so true. So true. Like that. Well, two things I saw come up, which just, I think, wrap it. Aaliyah jumped off, but she made a great point. She was like, what a great way to bring it full circle, which I thought was true and also amusing based on the bike wheel metaphor. And and Amanda, absolutely. Remember, you are the sum of the 5 people that you're around the most. Absolutely, you are, and that is our whole. You know, you see us post about this all the time. It's on our podcast. We speak to it all the time. Surround yourself, and you have to make choices to um, surround yourself with those people, because you become wrong word. Scrap that. You are your journey, and the direction of your best version is influenced by your 5 people, by your inner circle. You know, surround yourself is key, and you have to you have to be okay. And we spoke about this a lot on podcast episodes. So if you haven't heard us talk about this, go back and listen. But you know, you have to be okay cutting people out if they're not on that, if they're not guiding you where you want to be with that path. If you're not supporting me and helping me and being those guardrails for me, then you're not surrounding yourself anymore. So do one.
If you're not a spoke, you're not in the wheel.
Yeah, you're out. You're in the tree.
Put that on a t-shirt. I think we're close, bud, and I want to make sure that we wrap up eloquently versus it just going, yeah, and we're frozen and everybody's like, what the fuck? So let's sign it off here. Any last words?
No, just get out there. If you're not following us, you see right at the top here, you can jump in. If you've come in from my page as well and you aren't following the podcast page, please follow it. It's where we're bringing everything together. And you know, check out our episodes. We as men on a Monday, we as difference makers on a Tuesday, we as dads on a Wednesday, all episodes released. And in June, we as women on Thursdays. And
Thursday, June 18th, we as women, the We As Start Talking Empire. And just so people know, we're not talking shit. We're building this model fashioned after the same model of the wheel that we're talking about. We As is the hub. Each one of our podcast platforms is nothing more than a spoke. Each spoke will influence. If one spoke falls off, the others will help still move that wheel forward. So to any of you out there that are watching this right now or watching this over the next 24 hours, or if anybody knows anybody that you feel would be a part of the We As podcast community, you know, reach out and let us know. Send one of us a DM.
Yeah, 100%.
The Empire. I love it. That's my second favorite word. Nothing. I thought for sure you'd jump all over that. Jimmy, I love you.
Love you, man.
Peace out.
Peace out, everyone.
See everybody. Thanks for tuning in. How do I hang this motherfucker up? And bye, guys. Thanks to everyone.